TJAC Survival and Survival Dispatch. We are in the Uintas with a horse outfitter doing some elk hunting. We're going to talk about long-term camp setup. We're going to talk about fire lays, friction fires, long-term camp setup, a whole bunch of stuff. So stick with us.
Well, let's just...
Hi, Blue. Hi, buddy. Huh? What's this one's name, Joe?
It's Cinder.
What's Thunder?
Cinder.
Tinder?
Cinder.
If I could hear, that'd be great.
With a C?
Cinder.
She's actually
Oh, hey.
that one from mine.
What's this one's name?
That's Elijah.
Elijah? Let's see, I can say Elijah. Cinder, evidently not.
Cinder and Tinder.
Yeah.
Tinder.
You'd have one named He and one named Ha. This is my favorite one right here. Yeah, you know where that came from. He's an all snuggly guy, huh? Yeah. There you go. Oh, that's beautiful. Just beautiful. Managing a horse, a bow, and a camera, kicking my trash. Now you want to trot. Here we go. Those mountains. Just want to see a big old monster elk bugling down there. That would be outstanding. Hey, this is Tyler with TJAC Survival and Survival Dispatch. I want to talk about shelter. What I've been trying to do is fire, water, shelter, food, communications, medical, and the ability to replenish all those things constantly. I think if you can get fire, water, shelter, food, communications, medical, and the ability to replenish everything constantly, that you'll never have a survival situation, or you'll always be able to deal with a survival situation. One of the biggest failures that we have is shelter. The main thing that kills people in a survival situation is exposure, which is a lack of shelter. The problem is people only look at shelter like that thing you build out of wood. The reality is that shelter is so much more than that. Shelter starts with proper prior planning. We have this thing in the military. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. So I want to talk about some of the Kuiu clothes that I use while I'm hunting, because that preemptively strikes shelter. That stops shelter from being a problem at lower temperatures. Whereas if I was just hiking up here in a t-shirt and shorts, I have to make a shelter or a fire because I'm not wearing the right clothing, not wearing the right appropriate clothing. But if I have the right and appropriate clothing, I don't always have to immediately make a fire because I'm not going to get cold as quick. That doesn't mean I don't bring a lighter or any of that, but it just means that I'm wearing the shelter on me. So we need to look at shelter as the things that we wear and fire in addition to a physical shelter. We also need to look at it as food. If you're eating food, there's a fire in you with that food being digested. If you have a lighter, you create a fire, you're getting heat, which is shelter. But right here, if you're wearing the right kind of clothing, you're wearing shelter. So this morning, or better yet last night, it got well below freezing. I've been kicking through frost all morning long, so it's cold here. It's really cold this morning, but I know that it's going to get really hot in a little while. And it's equally as important to be able to stay warm when it's cold as it is to stay hydrated and not swampy when it's hot. So you got to find a good balance. So what I did this morning was I started out with I had these KUIU pants on. I think these are the Chugach pants. I'm not sure what they're called. They're a rain resistant pant, something like Gore-Tex. And the reason I was wearing these this morning is because I was walking through a swamp type area with frost in it, high grasses and stuff that would make my pants wet. If my pants are wet, then I'm going to be wet later on. As the heat came up, or as the temperature came up, I removed this thin layer, rolled it up into my backpack. Something thin like this to keep your legs, which is a large muscly part of your body, warm, and the lower part of your legs warm by not being wet, is super valuable. The next thing I had on, and I just took it off, is this KUIU jacket. This is not a KUIU commercial. I bought all this gear. So it's the Chugach KUIU jacket, and I've been again walking through brush, frost, water, very cold morning, and now it's time to lose this layer. Now I'm going to show you a cool little tip that I like to use. You fold your sleeve in, fold your other sleeve in, fold that center in. So now I've got all of this. I'm going to drop this piece and roll it up. Everything will fit inside the hood. You can do this with any jacket. And now I've got this little pack that when it comes time to put away, it doesn't take up too much space. It's not flopping all over the place. I can just slide it right down in my backpack or stick it in one of these outer pockets. Now I don't think it's gonna rain. It was really hot yesterday. So I'm gonna slip this in the bottom of my bag. If I thought it was going to rain, I would want to leave it on the outside of the bag so that if it did rain, I can throw it on quick. That's why I like a poncho. You leave it on the outside of your bag, covers your entire body. Now this mid layer is something that I want to talk specifically about with regards to shelter. It's wool. It keeps my core body warm. And I always have a lighter inside of it. I've actually got two lighters inside of this one. So this gives me the ability to stay prepared and layered. So as it starts to get warmer, I can pull this next layer off because this is kind of a thin breathable layer so that when it's hot, I can sweat through this and evaporate quickly so that I'm not wet. Because tonight when it gets cold again, I don't want to be wet, I want to be dry. I want to talk about wool specifically and why I'm such a fan of it. Wool, if you look at it on a micro level, it's like a spring. It's really, really curly. And what that does is it makes it so that even if there's water in the wool, even if it's wet, it'll keep you warm. So because it's curly, you can crush it, squeeze the water out, and then it will spring back up. And it also has lanolin in it, which is antimicrobial and antibacterial. So it's going to get rid of smell. So wool, when you're spending multiple days or weeks in the backcountry, you haven't showered, either hunting or hiking or backpacking or survival situation, whatever, it's not going to stink. It's going to keep you warm even when it gets wet or warmer than other materials would with the same level of wetness. And you can dry it with fire. There aren't a lot of materials you can dry with fire. This synthetic shirt I'm wearing, if I was to dry this with fire, one little spark that hits it turns into this little molten donut, makes a hole in my clothes and sticks to me with burning plastic. That's a major problem. Wool doesn't have this issue. So When it comes to insulating layers, when it comes to socks, because you don't want your socks to pack out, otherwise you blister, you want wool. You want wool as your insulating layers. You want them as your sock layer. You want them for survival. If you think you're going to be in the bush for crazy amounts of time and living in the same clothes, make it all wool. You can wash it off in the creek, wring it out, and dry it with fire without it burning holes. It'll start to, when you're drying wool, it will start to throw steam off of it, so you can tell that it's drying. You can kind of rub your hand against it to make sure that it's not drying too much. If a spark hits it, it's going to sit there for a minute. You can brush it off, as opposed to immediately turning into lava or molten plastic. Now, if you leave a spark on wool, it's going to burn eventually too. It just doesn't do it as fast as cotton or plastic or any other type of materials. So that's my thoughts on wool and why I like them for the survival layer, or for the shelter layer, and the insulating layer for anything that you're doing in the backcountry when it's cold. Think about shelter in more than just terms of the thing that you create. Think about it in the clothing that you wear. Morris Kohansky has a saying, I'm going to slaughter it, but essentially it says, if you can't sit comfortably at 2 o'clock in the morning in the environment that you're in, you're not wearing the right clothing. Yes, that means during the day you're going to have extra jackets that you don't use. But if you find yourself lost or stranded or spending the night, you'll thank me when you bring that extra layer of jacket, pants, insulation, and the ability to add and remove, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not freezing to death. Hopefully this is valuable. Until next time.